My name is Alice, the Fabric Ninja, and today we're going to be making this adorable elf hood. Follow the link below to download it in all 6 sizes, from newborn all the way to one that would fit my big noggin. Maybe you're looking at this going, I'm not going to wear a hat that has a twirl on the top. Don't worry. Twirls are adorable on little kids and quite frankly adorable on adults too. But if you're not ready to go for the total elf swirl, the pattern has you covered. You can, of course, do the elf swirl or a pixie point. Super adorable when you add a pom-pom to the end or a bell. It also comes in your standard hoodie shape, but there's nothing standard about this. The hoodie shape creates so many different animals perfectly, including this unicorn. I have a video on how to make this and a download for the Make It a Unicorn pack, which includes the ears, horn, and instructions on how to make this beautiful mane. So all of those pieces are included in this one pattern that you can download today. Just head over to that link and grab it from my website. Now today we're going to be focusing on the elf shape and we're going to be using fleece. I happen to live in the northern climate in Indiana, and so fleece is a necessity when it comes to winter hats for my family. If you live somewhere else where it's a bit warmer, this pattern can be used with thinner fabric like a cotton lycra, or you can even use it with a woven fabric. Any of your beautiful quilters cottons are perfect for this hat. If you've been sewing a while, you realize what I just said is a bit of a contradiction, right? Because I said you can use this with stretchy fabric and with woven fabric, but I'm serious, you can. This fabric was designed with fleece in mind, which has only a very little bit of stretch in certain directions. So this pattern is perfect for to use your woven fabrics or to use your knit fabrics. They all work with this pattern. You can even use soft shell, which is a type of fabric that's waterproof. So this can be a rain hat too. So let's get started on our elf hood. I want to take a minute to walk you through the elf pattern. We have our swirl up top. I have actually filled this one with a bit of polyfill, so it's a squishiness to it. The elements on the outside of this hood are obviously optional, but I do have a template to help you make these on your hood. On my website, I do have an SVG file of holly and berries that you can download as well if you don't want to try to cut it out this way. The hood that I'm showing you here is the smallest size available, so I'm going to take a moment and switch to one of the larger sizes and another shape so I can show you some of the features of this pattern. The neckband can be folded up and down to customize the height of the hood, either depending on how you like the fit that day or as your child grows. These hoods are designed to fit for multiple years, so you want to be able to customize the fit as your child gets older and bigger. So the neck can be folded and also the face can be folded. This fold back face feature is also great on even the adult sizes because when the wind is really blowing, it's nice to be able to have your hood farther out from your face so the wind doesn't get to your nose. Because of these two design features, I like using my fabrics for the inside and the outside that coordinate with each other. So the baby size has only the smallest amount of fold back, but you still can do it to get that adorable color change here. And certainly you could do this and it would make the baby hood more of a preemie size. So my goal today is to actually duplicate what we have here, but just in a larger size. So let me get out our fabric and patterns and let's make this. To make your hood, you're going to need the templates for the holly and berries if you want to use them, the instructions if you want to follow along with them, and just so you know, they are incredibly detailed. There is not a step left out and there are comprehensive yardage charts so you'll know exactly what you need. And last, you need your pattern. So the first thing you need to do is actually measure that size square. And now it's time to put them together. Here on my pattern, you can see what order the pages go together. And in the background of the pattern, you can see the bigger number. So you can see that this is page 10, so it's going to go down here. And then 9, 8, and 7. But you actually don't even need this grid here. If you look on the pattern, you will see stars go one way and crosshairs go the other. These two crosshairs both have an E on them, so you know that it's actually the same crosshair that you're going to be overlapping. And these stars both have a 5 and these both have a 6. So you know that those are the ones that you'll be overlapping. The easiest way to put patterns together is when you have a source of light from underneath. Now this can be taping them onto a window. It can be putting your cell phone underneath so the light goes from one to another, or sticking a glass baking pan with a flashlight underneath of it. Everything is ready to go. The rotary cutter that I'm using here is just for paper. It's one of my old rotary cutters that's not sharp enough for fabric anymore. If you haven't sewn before, or it's been a while since you've sewn, I want to talk you through all the different markings on a pattern so you know what you're looking at here. We already covered our square here, which tells us if we printed this the right size. Yep, we did. Our arrow here tells us where the grain of our fabric goes, and the arrow is going to point up. So if you had a piece of fabric that maybe had a big design on the side of it, you would need to make sure that you had it going the right way so that when it's on the side of your head, it's facing the right direction. In the center here, we have cut line for ear dart. Well, we're not going to actually be putting any ears in this hood, so we don't need to worry about that. And because of that, we simply don't cut it. We just leave it alone and don't worry about it. For our elf hood, we are going to be cutting 2 outsides from the elf shape and 2 insides from the hoodie shape. I'm going to get out our example here so you can see what the inside looks like. So the inside of the elf hood is simply a hoodie. Now it's not reversible because you couldn't very well stick your head inside there, but it does create a space for us to stuff and help keep this lovely shape. Over here we have information like the face edge can be turned back. For smaller kids, you can fold up the chin strap. And we have information about the size, our seam allowance, and how many we need to cut. Our seam allowance is 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch, and you will want to cut 2 from the outside and 2 from lining. So we're going to be cutting 2 from red and 2 from green. Time to lay out our fabric. When you're cutting a hood, you need to make sure you cut a right and a left side. So it's important to cut mirror images. As our pattern says, cut mirror images. You can do that by having your pattern flat, cutting one this way and then flipping it over to cut the second one. Or you can fold your fabric. There we go. So we're not going to need the Pixie extension here. So I'm just going to take a moment and fold this back. And now we need to get our pattern to stay still while we cut it out. You can pin it. Clips don't really work here because we don't have any edges, or you can use one of my favorite tools, spray adhesive. It's temporary spray adhesive, and it basically just turns your pattern into a big sticky note, and it saves you a lot of pinning time. So that's what I'm going to use. And you can choose to sticky your fabric, or you can use it to sticky your pattern. See, I have a giant sticky note now, so everything will stay still. So that curve up there is one of the hardest parts, and we're going to tackle that in a couple of different rounds of getting closer into the curve. Move the fabric in whatever way you need to get the curve into the best position for you. And at some point you may find that switching to a rotary cutter is easier, or actually picking it up into your hands. Sometimes curves are hard for people, so just make a couple of cuts at it. That's also a very valid way to do curves. And last, we have our final little bit of the elf curve. And I'm going to pick that up into my hand so that I can more easily manipulate everything together. There we go. Our pattern is cut out. And one thing I want to mention is if you don't get this cut out exactly, that is the elf curl exactly, it's still going to be a cute little elf twirl. No matter what shape you cut out, it's still going to be adorable. So don't fret about this. This is nothing to worry about. You got your basic shape cut out, call it good. And now for the second color, the green. For the green, we are just going to be using the hoodie shape. So I'm actually going to cut right on that hoodie line so that if I want one of those other shapes again, I can just tape along the hoodie line and not have to reprint. Looks like I have a perfect spot meant for me right here. And this pattern still is sticky from that spray adhesive, so I don't even have to spray it again. It's still a sticky note. Sometimes after you've cut the pattern out once, it's a little bit harder to get those curves because you don't have that extra paper there to hold everything down. That's one of the times where a rotary cutter comes pretty handy because you can just press down from above to get those little pieces. Or you can just rely on the pattern that you already cut out of the red and follow that corner while you're sewing. So I have my outside fabric and I have my lining fabric. Next up, I need to cut my decorations because it's going to be attached to the outside here before everything is put together. If we take a look at this one, it's not actually sewn through both layers. Now that doesn't mean you can't. You can totally make the entire hood and then put these embellishments on and sew them on. It's just a little bit harder because you will have to get this into your machine with the rest of the bulk. So I choose to put these on first before the hood is together. If getting that inside corner is hard, just head at it from the other direction. I am struggling a little bit. I think I'm gonna have to hold it in my hand. Sometimes it's just hard to do things flat so that they're easy for the camera to see. Sometimes it's just best to pick them up and manhandle them. I have to remind you again, we're not looking for perfect precision here. We're not looking for twins here, we're looking for sisters. And I guess I'll cut out one more so we can just see what it looks like. So the reason I'm using my already cut piece instead of the pattern is because the already cut piece is going to stick to itself. So fleece just naturally sticks to itself. And now we need some berries. So I've included a berry pattern. It's a little circle. Little circles are hard to cut. So my suggestion is you set this pattern aside and you just look at it. And you take one of your little bits and say, I'm gonna make a circle that kind of looks that size. And just turn it in your hand and clip it. Might be the right size, put it on top. That'll do, it's close enough. So just use it as a guide. Using smaller scissors might also help too. Okay, we have our embellishment. We have our inside and our outside. So let's figure out where we want this embellishment to be. It is going to be on the outside of our hood, and so now we need to look to see if our fleece has a right side and a wrong side. I don't see one, so I'm just gonna pick a side and call it good. Your fabric, though, may have a right side and a wrong side, so check that out. And this hood is designed to be able to roll up and to flop back. So I want my pattern where it's going to show at least most of the time. So if it flops back, if I put it here, at least some of it will show when it's flopped back. I could set it further back even, but I do need to keep in mind that I don't necessarily want it wrapping around to the back of the head. In the quilting world, what I'm doing is called an auditioning, which means you just hold things up and see what you like. Oh, I actually like that now. This is the creative process that's fun, right? When you actually get to play and try it out. So this is gonna get covered up a fair amount there. This is where I want them to be. As I mentioned earlier, our fleece sticks to fleece. So they're pretty much where they're going to be. And I'm gonna actually be sewing on the leaves before I sew on the berries. So bye-bye berries. I'm gonna just have you set here. We'll need to put you back on in a minute. So pat those down. If you're not convinced they're gonna stay still, please add a pin. Because once you have them where you want them, you do not want them to move. I'm going to be doing a single line through the center, just like I did here. It kind of makes a 3D effect with the leaves because they can stick out. You can go around the edges, you can add veins, whatever works for you. Today we're working on my Pfaff Creative 7550. Absolutely love this machine, hands down. It is a machine that has some computerized functions, but there's nothing I'm doing today that you can't do on your basic sewing machine. I have the whole machine threaded up with a white thread. That's to make it easier for you to see, and quite frankly, it'll make it look pretty adorable too. So now we're going to attach these to the hood. I am just going to do one straight line from here to there. You can draw the line on. It's not cheating, but I'm not going to. And I'm going to use a triple stitch. It's not a fancy stitch. It's something you have on your machine. Let me show you what the marking is on mine. It's this thicker line. Sometimes it'll show 3 lines. The only reason I'm using this is it's going to create a much thicker line on my hood, whereas a thinner line might not show up with the loft. I'm going to do a little back stitch here. My machine has a tie off, but you can just do a few little back stitches. Okay, so we have our hood, our leaves looking cute. Let's get those berries on. So my berries are going to go approximately here, but let's check out the other hood so you can see what I did. I chose to just do a bunch of zigzags right next to each other in the middle of the berry to hold it down. You could sew a little X or a star through it. All you need to do is tack them down either way. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I love it. It looks like those little white marks that they put on cartoon drawings to show that something's round. So that's with black. This is with white, pretty similar techniques. And I kind of like how the white shows its stitching. Well, there you go. If you were curious what each of them look like, pick the color you like or even have it match. Use red or green. We've got our beautiful embellishment on, and now it's time to actually build our hood. So this is the outside, and we are going to put our right sides together. Again, if your fabric has a right side and wrong side, this is when you will see why you needed 2 mirror images. Remember, clips come off as you sew. You really can't sew over them or even that close to them. So these are mostly reassurance. So we have our outside. We're going to be sewing up around here and down, and then we're going to do the same to our insides. Again, right sides together. If you have one, you'll know. Now it's time to sew these hoods together. I'm going to start with the inside because it's easy. On my machine, this one here is 1 centimeter, so that's going to be where I line the edge up to. I am going to extend my straight stitch to a 3.0 from a 2.5. That's simply because fleece doesn't really need all those super close stitches. But if you don't, that's fine. Okay. We have the hoodie part done. Now for the elf part. I'm going to start right up here at the front, just like I did with the other one. So once we get to the elf curl, we are going to drop our seam allowance down. That just simply means we're going to sew closer to the edge. I have made the pattern so that you use a 1/4 inch seam allowance through here. It just makes it easier to turn all these curves. If you use your standard seam allowance, either by accident or by purpose, the curl will just be less wide, so it'll be narrower. Now that we're back to the rest of the hood, move your seam allowance back to where it's supposed to be. That's just so that your inside and your outside end up the same size and are easier to put together. We have both of these layers sewn together. We have our inside and our outside, and we need to do just a little bit of work before we put them together. We need to do some notching. What I tend to do is just fold it in my hands and then clip sideways. And that is the easiest way I have found to do a notch. So we only need to do this around the curved area. Now I'm showing you notching here so you have a better understanding of it, but because this is fleece and is not going to unravel, I can just trim. I don't need to do any special notching here, but if you're using fabric that can unravel, you need to notch it, not just trim it very close. Now let's head to the outside part. The inside just had one little bitty curve. We got a lot of curve. All I need to do is trim about 1/8 of an inch from the seam line because it's not gonna unravel. We are ready to turn this right side out. And while we're doing that, we're actually going to be stuffing our point here. So I'm gonna bring my fingers in here and I'm gonna get all the way into that point. It will be easier to stuff this point if we haven't pulled it all out. So I still kind of have it on my hand here, and I'm going to start stuffing this before I get it all turned right side out. Eraser on a pencil. It's so amazing because it's grippy enough that it can really move that fleece around and push it. Okay, let's pop back to the inside and see how we're doing. Did I get it? Yes, I've actually got fleece all the way into that point. Fleece fluffiness into that point now. Okay. Because the curve of the other hood is going to sit back here, and we want this whole part to have a little bit of stuffing to help our loop stick up. Now that you have this pad of stuffing, and this is all filled up, take a gander at the adorableness before we keep going. Yes, love that. Okay, now we need to put the 2 layers together. And we, as always, put right sides together when we're sewing. So here we have our lining, and here's our outer, and here's the inside. So we're gonna tuck this right in here. And it's not gonna fit terribly well because they're a different shape, but all we care about is the front edge. We don't need to make anything else match up. Okay, the front edge and the bottom, whatever. Here is the top of the head. I'm going to open these seam allowances so they're right on top of each other like this. If you happen to have 2 sewing lines and can't get those open, if you put them like this, you can nest them next to each other and it's the same difference. So I'm going to put a clip on there because we absolutely want that to match up. Scooch everything inside here. Go to the back of the head on the neck, and we absolutely want those to line up. Okay, so we still have that stuffing just kind of hanging out here. That's cool. That's where we want it. When everything flips, it'll be covered with this hood inside here. The next step is to sew all the way around this perimeter and leave a hole at the bottom here for turning. Same as before, I'm using that straight stitch again, and we are still with 1 centimeter seam allowance as marked on the pattern. Okay, we're coming up to these corners. You'll want to stop your needle down if you need to do any pivoting. I'm able to do that one just by kind of manipulating the fabric as I sew, but I can't always get the corners to do that. So if you're not quite sure how far to go, just do a little test once you've stopped. Those inside corners can kind of confuse people sometimes, so it's totally fine to draw on there the line that you're supposed to sew. Drawing your line is not cheating. So I am happy with all my stitching lines, so now I need to clip and notch and do all that fun stuff that makes it so we can actually turn it. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. We are ready to flip this sucker right side out, which is also called birthing. It's a term more commonly used by quilters, but nonetheless appropriate. Stick your hand right inside, flip it all, and then you'll need to stick your finger inside of the straps or even use that eraser again to get up inside here and smooth them out. And then just work your hands along the perimeter until you find the next thing that you need to flip. Don't be afraid to stick your hands inside and get into there. And now that stuffing was sitting back here is now firmly right here. We're basically done. There's only a couple of little things left to do. One is you gotta close this turning hole, and I choose to do that while I am top stitching around the entire thing. Technically speaking, you don't need to top stitch around it. I like to, because it keeps the green on the green side and the red on the red side and makes it just a little bit crisper looking. But technically speaking, you don't have to. It will be fine. You do need to make sure you are top stitching closer to the edge than is your seam allowance. Otherwise, the hole will not actually be caught. I'm going to use the same foot I have been using, but I'm going to move the needle to the right just so it's closer to the edge. There are some lovely special feet out there that you can use for top stitching along the edges that will help keep things very even, but you don't need them. You don't need to use those special feet. But remember, toys are fun. So I'm just gonna rock this in my fingers until the edge lays pretty even along there. Now we're getting to the front of the hood. There's a lot of thickness here, and some sewing machines are not gonna be thrilled about it. So we're going to use a scrap of our fleece, and I'm gonna stick it underneath the back of my presser foot, which just means the back of my presser foot is now even with the front of my presser foot. And it helps me get over that thickness, and I can just sew right off of it, and it's not in my project. I just toss it away until I need it again. Gosh, that is cute. I'm just gonna come in here and stick my hand in to help everything go where it is. And remember, fleece sticks to itself. So by rubbing that side, you're gonna naturally help everything stick in a very nice position. If you ever have trouble with the lining kind of bunching up or doing crazy things. There's nothing wrong with adding a couple of stitches somewhere to help things set down, or just simply doing a little bit more stitching on any sort of embellishment, and that'll just naturally hold the layers together. So we have our little pad of stuffing here at the end. I want to take a moment and just look at where my seam is, look where the back is, and just stuff everything back. Shove that stuffing up and back where it belongs, and it'll probably just stay there now. When you are washing this, it may kind of come out and do different things. You can just kind of shove it all back that way, or you can add a stitch back here and a stitch at the top, which will just naturally keep all of that stuffing together and in one place. Now it's time to do the snaps. I am using cam snaps today. You can use Babyville snaps, you can use sew-on snaps, whatever works for you. You can refer back to your pattern to get your placement if you'd like, but it's really just the center, a little bit from the edge. It's a second hole, just a little bit away. That gives some adjustability on next size. So here's my tip when trying to get everything lined up. I flip the hood the other way, and then I squish my hands on top of those studs, and then quick look, and you will see the spots. So the cap will go on the outside, the socket will go on the inside. Snap one, snap two, pull them. They're definitely still on there. Your hood's done. There it is. You can flop back that front edge, or for smaller children, you can flop that up, and then as they grow, it gets longer. Thank you for joining me today in making this adorable elf hat. Don't forget to stop by my website and get your pattern downloaded.